Hi, my name's Luke. I am the head of games at Kickstarter. I've worked there for nearly 5 years, 5 years in September. So I've seen, I've seen the company change quite a bit in the last few years. I'm also a creator. I'm a game designer, publisher myself. And since I've started at Kickstarter, I've run 9 projects for games, t-shirt, and comics. Yeah. You may know Kickstarter. You may have heard of it. We are a website. We do crowdfunding. We're specifically for creative projects. We're not a general purpose crowdfunding website. So these are some of the more impactful projects. Kickstarter is often associated with technology and games, but we also have 13 other categories. And in fact, most of the site is focused around cultural and arts programs, and projects rather. Right. We are a mission-driven organization, and as I said, we are focused on creative projects, and that's it. That is what we believe is important work for us and where we want to focus all of our efforts. And in fact, I'm going to try to paint a picture of why that is so important to what we do and how effective the company is. Yeah, buddy. Right, but to begin our journey, let us talk about corporate law. It's the most fascinating thing. So Kickstarter began its life as a INC, just a regular corporation, but in 2015, we reincorporated as a benefit corporation. So for those of you who run your own companies or run corporations, know that INCs have an obligation to their shareholders to earn profit. But in the last few years, a new form of corporation has developed. It's actually not available in all 50 states, but it's something that when we saw, we felt like this was the best alignment of our business model and our values. So a benefit corporation is a for-profit corporation. Is not a nonprofit, but the charter for a benefit corporation is different. The charter for a benefit corporation says that you will adhere to your mission, and your mission is going to be to do some kind of public benefit. So it's a fascinating twist on my work. As the head of games, I deal with a lot of very big projects, and as some of you may know, games is quite a big industry. But what it means for me is that I get to look at a game in terms of whether or not it is good, whether or not it deserves to be in the world, whether the team deserves support. I don't ever have to look at a game in terms of is it going to be profitable? Is it going to make money, right? Because our mission as a company is to do good, to bring creative projects into the world, to support underserved communities. And it's incredibly powerful. It means that I get to work with just hordes of lovable weirdos, and it's the best. But just a little bit more so what does that all mean in terms of scope and size? Right, there are about 13 million people who have backed a project in Kickstarter, and there's actually a nice churning community. About a third of those people have backed more than one project in Kickstarter. So it's not just people coming and saying like, hey, my mom's doing a crocheting project on Kickstarter. People may get their start there, but they often come back to support other projects. And I think, honestly, we're at a games conference. 4.2 million, I think about half those people for returning backers are in games, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong. Maybe a third. All right, what's up, buddy? Let's go. Hey, how you doing? Right, and Kickstarter, it's well known in the US, but we have backers from every country on Earth, or nearly every country on Earth who has supported a project, including Antarctica. We had a guy who was just really, he was I don't know, at McMurdo Station or something, and just loved backing Kickstarter projects. McMurdo Station isn't a real thing, by the way. That's from John Carpenter's The Thing. All right, and in terms of money, that's, yeah, over $3 billion pledged, 124,000 successful projects, and 676 million of that is pledged to games. So the Kickstarter is what I like to call kind of big and tiny at the same time. I don't have 676 million. I would love to have 676 million dollars. Oh, the things I would do. And it's like to independent creators, like distributing that amount of money amongst them is great. It's very powerful. But in terms of the games industry as a whole, 676 million is not a lot. It's less than the first day's take for GTA 5, right? One day for like a AAA game. So big and tiny. Right. But we think that we have, despite our big and tiny status, we feel like we have an outsized impact. And again, beyond games, I mean, we worked with the Smithsonian to reboot the suit, to restore Neil Armstrong's suit. We, of course, worked with De La to put out a new album, which was really fun. And people love to put things in space on Kickstarter. And this isn't just like NASA. This is just small citizen groups putting like microsatellites in space. I couldn't find the slide, and I feel bad, but the better version of this slide involves pizza. That's the subcategory of putting things in space on Kickstarter is putting pizza in space on Kickstarter. And yeah, we have footage of people who have launched a slice of pizza into low Earth orbit and, you know, put it out there. Why you would do that, I don't know, but it's actually pretty great. Yeah, science, pizza science. But I kind of circle up those like wider creative projects to point to this Wharton School of Business study that we worked with Professor Ethan Mollick a couple of years ago to determine the economic impact of Kickstarter, and he came back with some pretty impressive numbers. So right, 300,000 part and full-time jobs, 5 billion economic impact, and 8,800 new companies. And this is basically, he traced people who had started a project on Kickstarter. He did a very extensive survey and interviews with them. And what did they do after, you know, did they continue working? Did they have to hire people to fulfill their Kickstarter project? Did it go on to become a successful business? Was it a one-off project? And yeah, and he came up with quite a nice halo effect around the creative economy on Kickstarter. So right, but let's talk about some games. So yeah, so that 676 million has been distributed to roughly 11,000 successfully funded games projects. So which is nice. Like I've helped bring quite a few new games into the world via Kickstarter, and again, remember, and from the standpoint of like a mission-driven, values-driven company, where these are not games where I am looking for big hits. These are small creators, independent creators, who are making weird artistic games and putting them out in the world, which is awesome. So Robot Turtles, which at one point was the most backed board game on Kickstarter, which it is no longer, but I think that's pretty funny. But Dan Shapiro launched this project a few years ago. It was a kind of educational programming game for kids, and so it has an educational component, did incredibly well on the platform, and then it has gone on to have a whole second life. I think you can get it on like ThinkGeek or something now as just a product. But right, started on Kickstarter. And then smaller projects. This is a New York-based team doing an educational content game based on ecology and ecosystems and biodiversity called BioBuilder. It's live on Kickstarter right now, should you be feeling interested in such things. But right, and this is a team, they're raising a very modest amount of money. They're raising $5,000, $10,000 to make this game. And I'm very privileged to be able to get to work with them closely and to advise them and to help them get this game out in the world. And then there are games like That Dragon Cancer, which had a documentary made about it. It's an incredibly powerful game. It's a serious game. This isn't necessarily a game you play for fun. If you haven't heard of it, it is the game designers recreated the experience of their infant child dying of cancer and the entire emotional journey that they took. They built into a game-like experience, and so you can kind of explore the environments and interact with the child, and it's a beautiful game. It's a very difficult game, very sad game, but Kickstarter presents a really perfect opportunity for not only the organization, but for the community around games to say, wow, this is hard. I would have never thought of this game, that this game should even exist, but obviously this is important, and so let's support it. They raised over $100,000 from their backers on Kickstarter. So really nice, successful project, and something that I'm very proud to have been a small part of. Right, but this is my favorite story. All right, this is my favorite story. So these jerks, right? That's when I need my notes for this one. So for those of you who don't know, this is a kind of a hit card game. It was launched on Kickstarter 2011, I believe. Funded in like the early winter 2011, and they actually funded at a very modest level. I think they raised like 14 grand or something. But it has since gone on to become this kind of cultural phenomena. And it has been fueled in part by the personalities behind the game. They're actually known as being rather droll and kind of pranksters, kind of obnoxious pranksters. Don't imagine the worst version of that, but they've done some crazy things on the internet, and their card game is all about getting your mom to say inappropriate things, and everyone going, "Mom," and her going, "What?" But I put them up there because they actually represent this really beautiful merger of the games world and the kind of the realities of the games world, and making kind of insouciant, weird, off-color products, but also being mission-driven and values-driven, and wanting and aligning their mission and values with Kickstarter. They have, since they have been so successful, they have, the Cards Against Humanity team has started a Science Ambassador Scholarship, have raised over $1 million for the scholarship, funded by sales of their cards. It gives a full ride scholarship every year to a high school or college woman who's studying science, technology, engineering, or math. Applications are open if anybody wants it. And it's the scholarship is judged by a board of 70 professional women who work in science. Let's see. They've also donated over $1 million to Donors Choose projects, which was also funded through the sales of their cards. They have donated $500,000 to the the Frontiers Foundation. They've donated $900,000 to Wikimedia, $700,000 to the Sunlight Foundation, which promotes transparency in political donations. And they also did a weird internet project to dig a giant hole in the ground after Trump won the presidency, because they were like, fuck it, we'll just dump all our money in this hole. I bring them up. I use them as kind of my final example, because it's so important to, of course, have a platform and think about the realities of the world that you're living in and your market. But it is even more important to build that platform on your values and to cleave to your mission above all else. And doing so, you will attract other good actors who will do the same, and you will have an increasing impact in the world. So there you go. So yeah, these are kind of our core values for Kickstarter. We very much feel like we are a part of the process. We're not just a funding platform, right? We very much want to support these creators and what they do. Because it's cold and lonely out there making games. It's a tough world. All right. Yeah. So that's me, and that's my presentation. Thank you all so much.